When I first heard about the COVID vaccine, I was a little bit uneasy. I didn't know much about it, didn't know whether or not it was safe or effective, so I did a little bit of my research. I realized that it was safe, it was effective, and then the side effects were very minimum. Everyone has a choice to take the vaccine, and if you don't feel comfortable now, it's okay. One thing that is important about the vaccine is for us. African Americans who have higher rates of dying from COVID-19, the vaccine can actually save our lives. Not only save your life, but save the life of your family members. And so when people have a hesitation around taking the vaccine, again, you should consider what are the benefits of me taking the vaccine versus the risk of me getting or having long-term effects of actually getting COVID. And once you consider that, once you've talked with your doctor, then make a decision of whether or not it's okay to do it now.
Transmission of SARS-CoV-2 occurs via droplet transmission, contact transmission, and aerosol transmission. Droplet transmission occurs when respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes are inhaled by a person nearby. Contact transmission occurs when a person touches a contaminated surface and then their mouth, nose, or eyes. Aerosol transmission occurs when respiratory droplets containing the virus mix into the air and are then inhaled. COVID-19 is stable for up to 24 hours on cardboard, 2 to 3 days on plastic and stainless steel, and up to 3 hours in aerosols, which include fog, mist, dust, air pollutants, and smoke. Therefore, it is possible to get infected by touching contaminated objects or through the air. The incubation period is the time between infection and symptom onset for an illness. Estimates for COVID-19's incubation period vary from 2 to 14 days, but it is generally assumed to be around 5 days. There is more debate about the latent period, which is the time between infection and infectiousness. It is now thought that people can be infectious before showing symptoms, and so the latent period is shorter than the incubation period. An imported case occurs when a traveler is infected in one area and is reported as sick in another area. Local transmission occurs if that traveler infects others, or if there's a cluster of cases locally and the spread is easily traced. Community transmission occurs when there is no clear source of infection. Infectivity can be measured using
An infectious disease is a case of microscopic, potentially lethal threats. So one individual can be asymptomatic and potentially kill others. And it's in restricting this threat that coercion is justified in lockdown, quarantine, and also mandatory vaccination. And another aspect to the argument for mandatory vaccination is that in a pandemic, time is lives. Every day around the world, 5,000 people die of COVID-19. Every day we delay getting to herd immunity, another 5,000 people around the world die. So it's not just a matter of getting to herd immunity, it's a matter of getting there as quickly as possible. Now, it's not just COVID-19 that is killing people, it's the lockdown that the government requires in the absence of vaccination. One leaked report puts 200,000 non-COVID lives will be lost as a result of lockdown, not to mention the 250 billion euros that the measures have so far clocked up out of it. How safe is the vaccine? Well, again, trials are not yet complete, but there are reasons to question whether the COVID-19 vaccine will be safe enough to be made mandatory. First of all, a decade of work has been compressed into a year. There's never been a vaccine against the coronavirus. Both the mRNA and adenovirus vaccines are new vaccines, and any new biological intervention carries unforeseen risks. No vaccine can be said to be 100% safe, and it will take months or years to see rare side effects emerge, and many hundreds of thousands of people administered the vaccine. So there will be some uncertainty. To my colleague Samantha to give the arguments against mandatory vaccination in COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Julian. So I'm going to switch over to my screen. Okay, so I'm going to be making the argument against mandatory vaccination. And of course, this is quite a binary way of thinking about the problem of how to raise vaccine uptake. But the question of whether to introduce mandatory vaccination doesn't seem to go away. There's some huge appeal in media and it's a debate topic. And it's actually something that politicians like to talk about, and I'll go into that. Politicians, they tend to like the idea of mandatory vaccination. It shows them taking a strong line. It's also very appealing because it appears to solve a problem of low vaccination quite easily without having to put in too much cost and resources, and you get a high impact. And these are factors that influence vaccination, which includes complacency, convenience, and confidence. So here in the UK, with the NHS and campaigns to tackle these 3 Cs, through services and policy and education and persuasion, other countries also followed a similar suit. And this has led to quite high uptake rates in vaccination. What I think is really crucial here is balancing between these 2 groups in society. So it's designing policies that take into account these 2 groups, what you might call the passive compliers and the active resistors. And it's simplifying it slightly, but these are delivered through institutions. So you're catering for 2 sections of society. And having policies that are coercive enough to encourage, but not coercive enough to provoke resistance, which is what we see with mandatory vaccination policy. So it's really not overshooting or undershooting, there's a balance.